from a renowned doctor who is 100 years old, and he graduated from Harvard, and he's a very acclaimed doctor, and if you stick around, you'll get some things that'll help you live longer. Well, good morning everybody here at Huckland, and good morning to my Facebook and YouTube feed. Those of you who don't know, I've got a pretty popular YouTube channel with over 10,000 subscribers. Only 10% of YouTube channels ever reach 10,000 subscribers. So we've got a pretty popular channel, and it's the spirit of adventure and discovery. I do a lot of pretty crazy, adventuresome things on this channel, and such as in one of my videos, I shoot an elk across a raging river when it's 13 degrees, and I go across the river and fetch the elk piece by adventure stuff. You might see a carabiner on my shirt. I do a lot of mountain climbing. I've climbed Mount Kenya, 17,354 feet tall. And there were 6 young people in my group, but I was one of only 2 that made it because it's high altitude and it was a tough climb. And so this morning I'm speaking on the subject of longevity, things that will help you and I live longer. Well, why should you listen to me? Well, for one thing, I'm 61 years old. I have a beautiful young wife. I've never had to take a Viagra pill, and we conceived a beautiful, big, strong child. And I'm pretty healthy for my age. And I'm able to do many things on the channel that some 20-year-olds cannot do. So there is some reason to listen to me, but this is not only about listening to me. We're going to examine some keys from a long life doctor and scientist named Dr. John Schaffenberg. He's a physician, he's a nutritionist, he's a professor of nutrition at Loma Linda University. He's a Harvard graduate from the School of Public Health, and he's the director of public health for the largest county in California, and he's 100 years old, so he probably has some good things to tell us. As for some of my personal keys to longevity, here's a few things that I believe have made me healthy. Number 1, when I exercise intensely. You might notice a short of me about 3 days of mountain bike record straight up this pretty intense vertical elevation to a lake here called Lion Lake. It's a beautiful lake here in the area. If you want to go to it, you just go 3/4 of a mile and you turn right where it says Hungry Horse Dam, and you go about a mile, and there it is. Well, I exercise intensely when I actually helps out. Another thing that helps me, I think, partly why I wanted to bring this message is because I want to live a long time. I finally got this place, Huckleberry Land, paid off. I finally got that Camaro sitting out there, paid off. I finally got my house paid off. And I think, well, what a great time to be alive when my stuff is paid off. And so my goal is to run this business right here until I'm 100 years old. I'm 61 now, I've got 39 more to go. I need to live a long time. This little son here, he's 5 months old, he needs a dad. And I need to live a long time. Mary, there's somebody there. So I examined not only my own keys, but I wanted to hear what others had to say. I went to Concordia University in Austin, Texas, And one of the professors and I really got along well. And he is now the dean of the whole school, Dean Don Christensen. And I was in his business class, and he actually had me speak to the whole university at graduation day because he thought I was an amazing businessman and had things to teach the kids. And it was pretty exciting, but Don and I got along really well. And one thing that he taught is he said, when there is a specific subject in your world, hear what different fields of thought have to say about it. Even though you are a Christian, don't become a rigid Christian who only listens to one dogmatic point of view. And, you know, I've tried to apply that in my life. I know I ruffled a lot of Christians' feathers when I said I am not going to spank or use the rod on my son DJ. They said, what? You're going away from the Bible? You're a heretic. Well, I have tried to listen to different fields of thought. Number one, my son Abe, he's a Wharton graduate. He's a pretty smart guy. And he said to me, Dad, I hope you don't paddle DJ like you did us, because it didn't really help. You're a big, unusually strong man, and it was frightening to us. I don't know that it would really help you to do that over again. And so I listened to my son. I have a second round here, and I'm going to try to do it the best way I know how. I have a little dog named Lester, and one time when he made me angry, I paddled him, and he's been a little bit hesitant toward me from that moment on. And so I thought to myself, I am not going to just only listen to one dogmatic point of view. I am not going to paddle. Sometimes it seems to me that that's the only verse Christian people know about parenting. But the Bible also says in Ephesians, fathers, love your children and do not be harsh with my older children I've already raised. I am listening to even the Sioux culture. They really held white people in disdain because we hit our children. They prized their children, they pampered their children, and a lot of them turned out pretty good. So you may think that I'm a heretic and have gone away from the Bible, but I try to learn from a multitude of sources and then engage my own wisdom to determine what's right. And so on this subject, for instance, I've engaged a multitude of different thoughts, not only one verse of the Bible. And with longevity, as I am trying to live a long time, I've got a young wife that needs me, got a young child that needs me. I have a lot of great things paid for. I don't want to just die. You know, somebody said, here's a good point. Maybe I'll make this number one. Retirement could be a grave mistake, no pun intended. Many people, they're active, they got to be active with their mind, with their body because of their work, and then at age 63 or whatever, they retire. Well, I don't know if that is the wisest thing to do, because keeping your mind alert, like I got to think of 11 things all at the same time here at Huckland. I've got to race around serving a multitude of people. I think it's good for me personally. And so number one, retirement could be a grave mistake. All right, some things that have really worked for me personally are number two, vigorous exercise. When you exercise, you should be panting, you should be sweating. When I ride my mountain bike, I time myself and I try to break my 19-minute record. And even if I don't, I've had a great workout when it's done. So, vigorous exercise. Number two, I believe in the value of cold water. Number three, cold water therapy. Oftentimes I will ford the river you might see a video in my YouTube channel, James Swimming the River. And I will ford the river many times with no waders or no insulation or no wetsuit. Maybe it's 39 degrees and go across the river. I think that's good for you. There's a guy named Wim Hof, a famous guy, I think he's from Belgium, that has perfected this cold water idea, and he even climbed Mount Everest in nothing but shorts. He's learned a system of breathing, and he believes that that cold water or cold immersion is actually good for you and invigorates your cells. Now we're going to go on to not just my own thoughts, but to Dr. John Scharfenberg, who once again is a physician, a nutritionist, a professor of nutrition at Loma Linda University, and he's graduated from Harvard School of Public Health. Okay, his first point, and this will be the fourth point in our talk, is he said exercise. Exercise is the great main thing as you get older. One different source said, not him, but a different source said, one of the main things that will indicate how long you will live is the muscle tone of your body. If you keep strong, if you keep a good muscle tone, there's a good chance you're going to live longer. And he said, exercise is so powerful that we've done studies with even obese women who exercise compared to more fit women that didn't exercise, and the obese women who exercised outlived them. When you exercise, your heart gets pumping, your circulation gets going, and he said exercise, according to scientific studies, has counterbalanced even extremely negative things like smoking, drinking, these kind of things, to make people live a long time. So that's his number one recommendation, is exercise. Now, some of these rest of these points I don't necessarily even agree with or practice, but I want to tell you what an expert in the field said. Okay, next he says that there are 7 killers that we need to avoid, and this is point number 5. 7 killers that we need to avoid. He says cardiovascular disease kill more people than the next 5 types of diseases combined. And so here is the 7 things to avoid. Tobacco, alcohol. He believes in complete abstinence from alcohol. Inactivity, too much meat and sugar, hypertension, too much cholesterol, and obesity. Diabetes is epidemic, as you know. Okay, this next point, I think we'll call it, am I on point number 5 or 6, hon? Can you remember? 6? Great. Point 6. And once again, I am giving his teaching. I am not necessarily agreeing with this. I am not personally a vegetarian, but his 6th point is vegetarians are living longer. In one study, 8.6 vegetarians that lived to 87 years old, and there was only 19% of people that were not vegetarians that lived to 80 years old. So the vegetarians in that study lived about 2 or 3 times as long. In women, the vegetarians that reach 87 years old are 60.1%, the non-vegetarians 39.3%. Women live longer. Now, this is good because my wife sitting here, listen, she's a meatarian. She doesn't eat really anything but meat. She eats meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every evening we eat a steak or a hamburger of some or a cube steak of some kind. And so, though this talk or his wisdom might not turn me into a vegetarian, I'm hoping it corrects our diet, things other than meat in our diet. Can I get an amen? Okay. He said we want to avoid saturated fat. Maybe this will be point number 7. Coconut has a lot of saturated fat, animal fat, butter. He said that according to him, the non-hydrogenized margarine is actually better for you than butter. I don't know if that's true or not. To me, it seems like they're always changing. First they'll say, no, oh, don't eat margarine, it's bad for you. And then they'll come back and say, now it's better for you than butter. So one study will say, oh, don't eat butter. And then the next study will say, oh, we actually found that butter is good for you. Well, I think we need to tune in to our own body. You know, maybe about a month ago, I found myself burping a lot. And I found myself when I lied down at night, I would cough for a while, but I wasn't sick. And I thought, what in the world's going on? And I did some research, and I found that that can be gastric reflux or GERD. And I listened to all the doctors on YouTube, and they said I should cut out milk. They said milk is for baby cows, it's not for adult men and women. They said that I should make other changes in my diet, like cut out chocolate and elevate my bed. I did those things, and it has pretty much gone away. So sometimes we got to just know our own body. Milk suited me just fine for 50, 60 years, but at this age now, it's not doing me very well, so I pretty much cut out milk. I have cut out milk for the last 10 days. Okay, so what we need, according to him, is greens, fruits, soybean. He's a big believer in tofu as opposed to meat that had a mother. And, all right, the next point. Oh, here is something. Yeah, the next point, I think it's 8. I might get the points mixed up because, to be honest with you, our cook didn't show up yesterday. I didn't have time to study, and I just put this together a little before the time of service here. But the next point, I'll make this point 8. If it's point 9, I'm sorry. His next point is cut out alcohol from your diet. What? Isn't a little red wine supposed to be good for you? Isn't a little beer supposed to be good for you? Well, Bill Gates funded a study that was done by a guy named Max Triswold, and he studied 195 countries. He's from the University of Washington. And the study was labeled, How Much Alcohol is Actually Good for You? And after studying people and different specimens in 195 different countries, he concluded that the best is no alcohol at all. That any advantages of having some alcohol are offset by the poison alcohol actually is. Once again, I'm not saying this is necessarily what I believe, but that is what Max Triswold, after studying 195 nations, that is what he came up with. Okay then, what should we be drinking? What is the best thing for the human body to consume? This doctor, who was 100 years old and an expert in the field, he said the best thing that human beings can consume is water. Water is by far better for you than the next best thing. So he said, be drinking lots of water. You know, my dad was a real believer in this. My dad lived to be almost 94. And as a young person, my dad didn't drink any alcohol, he wouldn't even sip alcohol. And when I was young, he said, you know, Bud, that 90% of your body is liquid, it's blood, and what you need more than anything is water. Before you start your day, you should have a great big glass of lukewarm water. It will jumpstart your whole body. And you know, I studied Tom Brady, and Tom was an amazing specimen of a great quarterback late into his, I believe he was 46 or something, still contending. And one of his big things was drink a lot of water. But they have done studies and found that you can actually drink too much water. Because if you drink too much water, it takes the sodium out of your blood, and that's not good either. But no one listening will probably drink too much water. So his 8th point is cut out alcohol completely and drink lots of water. Okay, the 9th point, his 9th point is that he was rambling a little, and he said there's a lot of benefit to useful exercise until you're in your mid-age, which is age 40 to 70. So useful exercise, I guess that's what we do running around here serving customers. I guess that's what people do when they're gardening, doing useful exercise. There's some people there, sweetheart. For those of you who just stepped in, I'm doing a little talk on longevity from a doctor who is 100 years old. All right, there's people that need you, sweetheart. And as he was rambling, he said things like, non-hydrogenated peanut butter is really good for you. That's a good source of protein. Rest. 9th point, rest. He said you need 7 or 8 hours of rest at the minimum. And he himself goes to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock and gets up at 4 a.m. Okay, point number 10, attitude. Your attitude is huge when it comes to longevity. If you have a good mental attitude, it's good for your whole body. We all have stresses that we go through in our world. But a good attitude is a great key to overcome these stresses. His next point was rather interesting, and I'm not going to give this a number, but he said childhood trauma has a lot to do with longevity. There is something called ACE, Adverse Childhood Experience. And adverse childhood experiences, if you've had 6 or more adverse childhood experiences, so not giving our kids enough love and attention, that can be an adverse thing. Not getting enough to eat, malnutrition, that can be an ACE. Someone in the family who is mentally ill, that can be an ACE. Someone in the family that's gone to jail, that can be an ACE. But he said it's interesting that even people with 6 or more ACEs can grow up pretty healthy if they have that resilient attitude. And he said that outdoor exercise can help offset some of these ACEs. And he said in general that the outdoor exercise is better than indoor exercise. And for the first 20 minutes, do not use sunscreen. Your body needs those rays coming in on you. All right. There are some places in the world that have been famous for longevity. One is Sardinia, Italy, and that's a Mediterranean diet, but it's also the eating of sardines are supposed to be good for you. Okinawa, Japan, Loma Linda, California. He said an interesting factoid about Loma Linda, California, is there's a lot of people of faith, and they have done some studies that people who go to church regularly outlive by 7 years those who do not. And it could be just that you form some relationships, that your mind is alert, you're talking to people, and that is an interesting little factoid. All right. So point number 9 is having a social network. Having a social network really helps you live a long time. He said, you know you have a social network if you've got at least 2 friends that would lend you money if you asked them to. That's having a real friend who would lend you money if you needed it. He says, as a nutritionist, I can give you a university course in nutrition in 1 sentence. Here is the sentence. You ready? Eat at the proper time a variety of natural, non-processed foods in quantities for ideal weight. That's he graduated from Harvard's School of Nutrition, and he said it can be boiled down in 1 sentence. Eat at the proper time a variety of natural, non-processed foods in quantities for ideal weight. All right, another thing he said important is your cholesterol. And he said when you go to the doctor and you ask, how's my cholesterol? And the doctor says, it's okay. Don't stop there, probe further, because there's 2 kinds of cholesterol that are really bad. The LDL cholesterol and the triglyceride is the biggest killer of women. So probe a little deeper and say, well, how is my LDL? How is my triglyceride? And our final point here is air and sunshine. Many of you have come up here to see Glacier Park, and that's good. You're getting some air and some sunshine. He said that's what we need. We need air and sunshine. Well, I know that isn't my normal Sunday morning talk, but I myself am aiming to live a long time, and I'm hoping this will help me, and I'm hoping it will help you. The Bible says in relation to prophecies or visions or things that people tell you, that you should test all things and hold on to that which is good. And I think that's what I'm going to do with what he said. I'm going to test it. I'm going to try it, and I'm going to hold on to the good things. I myself, we serve elk burgers, and I really like a nice lean elk burger. I think it's good for me. So I'm not going to become a vegetarian anytime soon, even though that's what he recommends. So I hope you got something out of this talk, and have a great day.